Okay. For people who are joining this live stream, we are doing a design meeting talking about compatibility between a variety of text, image, and other pieces of functionality. So Etienne, were you about to send me something to start off with?
Yep. Stephen, we have also brought Carlo in for the audio part.
Okay.
Which doesn't exist yet, but it will be good if I am informed about what happens in text cases and image cases.
Well, and we want audio cases as well. So, all right. Well, let's start off looking at. Okay, so Etienne has some comments here. By the way, somebody has a bunch of background noise. Sounds like, well, who knows? Okay. So what we're dealing with here is we've got text cases, which has, in this case, a sentence and a type. So pick the words from this. Okay, several types. Okay. Okay, but now we've also got things like, don't we have the facial features type thing where we have another pattern for what to do with this? How are we doing that? Who can, is Giulio here? Can you speak to that?
Yes, facial features.
Faces. Probably find faces is the one that you want to look at.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, the fundamental issue is there are different things we want. We might want the position. We might want the actual contents there. So faces has as properties here, I see, has bounding box. What is that? Is that the number of pixels in the image in that region?
Yes.
Yes. And then there's all the features available in facial features are supported here as well.
So question about position, like with images, I thought there are multiple coordinate systems. Which one is this?
Our standard image coordinate system, the one that is shown in the first illustration up in the notes. 0, 0 at the bottom left.
Okay. Okay. So you're returning these as rectangles.
Yes.
Because why?
Because this way is immediately usable by other functions that supports regions. And we have also updated all the image functions to take regions in. So like image trim, highlight image, they all work with regions now.
You mean with things like rectangle? Or do they also work with disk and so on?
Disk, point, everything. We've added the support for constant region queue regions, basically connected the regions defined without parameters in all the highlighting function.
Okay, okay. That's great. Is it documented?
Yeah.
Really? Like
mainly highlight image and image trim. Those are going to be the two in the pipeline that are going to be useful.
And we talk about that here.
Yep.
Great. Okay, great. So I have a question, which is, what is the analog?
By the way, since we're on highlight image, we're talking last time about, text plot. Maybe highlight text will be better to match highlight image.
Do I agree? It depends what's in it. What do we think the actual design is going to be?
Well, I guess it's going to be a bunch of positions of the region that should be highlighted, and possibly some labels. So, which I think highlight image has, right?
Mm-hmm. Tooltips, labels, annotations, right?
Yeah, exactly. URL or whatever. I mean, yeah.
So wait a minute. So what we imagine then, I'm not that keen on highlight text. I think it's a little bit obscure. Text plot is also kind of obscure. But what I'm imagining for text plot is that there are more complicated things we might do, like, underlines and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like where we highlight, like we do in the case of text structure. See what I'm saying? I mean, one style is pure highlighting, right? But another style is
Well, that could be a style of highlighting, when you say from this character to this character, and then you have a sort of property, which is like, what to
right.
say,
But I think what we're going to want, I don't know why this is so slow, but I mean, look, the basic construction here is a labeled type thing. Is the similar thing, labeled or call out. All of those things need to be supported, and those are plot-like creatures.
There's a bunch of these in highlight image, no? Look at the
call out is not, but
look at below.
labeled is.
You see annotation button. I don't know.
Yeah, we basically.
I tried labeled this morning. That's also supported, maybe not documented.
Yeah, but label is in the design yet, because basically labeled and call out are, as you said, in the plot word, while this is basically graphics, and there's no generic supporting graphics for stuff like labeled and call out. They just mean something inside the plot function.
Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit unclear. I mean, call out will be very interesting for images, but it would have to be outside of the image frame, presumably.
Yes, the thing I was experimenting with was labeled for stuff like image contents, if you want to highlight the bounding boxes, and automatic legending for components.
And it's not an image, right? Highlight image, the output is a graphic, no?
Is a graphic,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but so the point here is for text plot or highlight text. By the way, do we have Brett here or not?
No.
Okay.
Do you want me to grab him?
If we're going to talk about this, then yes, we should get him.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but let's go back to our main issue. So, okay, so in image cases, what do we imagine? Okay, I am so. How do I get a second? Yeah, there we go. Great. Image cases. Is this current? The document?
That's not built.
It's futurized.
It's in CDS, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
This was basically modeled after cases. So returning a flat list of the sub-images that match the pattern of the object that you put in the second argument.
Okay. But then we imagined that there would be an image. I mean, are we imagining that there is also an image position?
Yeah, I mean, basically image contents creates every property. And then you have shortcut functions like image position or image bounding box that can return directly the property that you want.
So,
okay. And is there a text analog of that? Sorry, go ahead.
No, there's none, but probably there should. So image content is a big function for image, and image cases is just a sub-function of image contents. For us, it would be text cases already is a big function.
Yeah, maybe we should have a text contents as well. Maybe. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, we haven't released image content, so if you want to adapt the design, the like image cases could change. While text cases has been out long enough that we shouldn't probably touch.
I like image contents. And the fact that the data set, it looks nice. Yeah. I think it's a bit more clunky to work with afterward for practical applications. So I believe that most applications are actually cases.
For text?
For text and maybe for image. Like what would be the application?
Well, I'll tell you that the application for, one thing is you see all these at least demos of, the self-driving car that's labeling the elephant crossing the road or whatever.
Yeah, but
Better can't do that actually.
But true. In that case, it wants to know about everything.
Right.
Because it gets a bit undefined, right? At some point on image, you might have, on this image, you have just two things. Okay, it's pretty clear, but at some point you might start labeling.
Oh, sure. But that's the question of what are you trying to get the cases of in the image, or the contents of in the image.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, the question is, what is the output, right? So I would say that image position is, I mean, that's somewhat useful. It's like let's imagine you've got a series of frames in a video and you're trying to track, where did the falcon fly or something, right? Then you want text image position, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want, show me all the falcons show me all the birds in the picture, you want image cases. And for image bounding boxes, that's mostly in a pipeline where you're going to put labeling and things in, I suspect. And in fact, the question is for image highlight, I mean, in a sense, show me all, highlight all of the, elephants in the picture or something, right? How would you do that? What's the minimal pipeline for doing that?
I think if we do support operator form, would be similar. It would be basically highlight image, comma, image bounding boxes, and like elephant.
So let me write down what you say.
Yeah.
So you say highlight image.
Highlight image supports functions in the second argument. So you can say image.
That first table, last row.
So basically every function that returns.
FG? I don't understand. What is FG?
That's the foreground. But if you look at the first table that says the region of interest can be any of the following, it can be a region returned by a function f, the last entry of the table.
So then what is it? It will be image.
An image? No, image first argument is the image that you want to highlight. And then image bounding boxes, and then inside like elephant, for example.
As an operator form of image bounding boxes.
Yeah.
Does any of this work, by the way?
Not the operator form, I think, but
I don't think we have operator form of bounding boxes, but if you say image bounding boxes, image, elephant, it will work.
Okay.
I was getting some messages earlier today from that.
This is 11.3 that I'm running. Should I be running 12?
No. This in master that hasn't changed. I don't know if we support anymore though. I have to see how the if you say cat, it will
with control equal, I think.
This is a bit weird. Yeah, if you put the entity in, it's definitely weird. I have to check the alignment of the identity.
Why is it so slow? Okay, so there's the cat as a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
interesting. That's probably reasonable. Although we've got other, don't we have other bounding box? We've got region bounds. Let's see. What is the? Don't we have a geo bounding box? And what does that return? Interesting.
So yeah, this is basically the mean and like it would be the old output with the mean x, mean y, max x, max y, but just wrapped in geoposition.
Right.
But keep in mind that one reason why we switched to rectangles and lines is that especially these two objects, you may represent a line or a rectangle with two x min x max, y, x min y min x max, y max positions. And it was difficult to keep track of it. Now you can just stick this rectangle or that line object into highlight image.
No, I agree. I think it's good. And I also think it's good that you don't necessarily, that one day we may have bounding boxes that aren't purely rectangular.
Yep.
Yeah, this is also one of the reasons.
But I mean, that's kind of not the point for geo-bounding box because, there is a boundary of Italy, but it's not rectangular, but that's sort of not the point. But my question is whether we could potentially sneak in an additional argument. Pads, okay. So there's the possibility of, actually, let me just ask this question. Do we have a project manager in this meeting? Yes, Sushma.
I'm here.
Okay, because there's going to be various different pieces to pull together here. So I think that this is, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking geo-bounding box might need to have something as image bounding boxes might need to have that specifies what its output what style of output, whether it's geometric primitives or not, it's supposed to be. Did that make sense? For consistency with this. But my next question is, in the case of text stuff, the analog of this decorated business is a text element.
It will be a span, right? Start and end position.
I think
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Right, but what about something more decorated like a text element? See, the problem is that the start-end position. Okay.
Text element is very specific. Like if you want to do different kind of highlighting, like a color, or as you were saying, underlying, or put a call out, like it may be too inflexible to use text element for all of that.
Fair enough. So text position. Okay, that does that. Fine.
I think it's fine for text. I mean, it's unidimensional.
So the analog of that, so image position.
we called it positions. I was just going to mention. In one of the old meetings, we decided to go plural.
I wonder if that's just utterly obscure. This, comma, cat. So that's going to give the medioid of the cat or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's the centroid of the boundaries. Which in this case is simple, but it may get more complicated if you have more complicated shape.
I think it is user hostile to have image positions plural. Why do we want to do that?
I think because we realize that cases returns multiple things and positions does the same thing, but it was already positioned.
I think the ship has sailed.
Yeah, probably yes.
Should change it to image position.
Okay, I will do it.
Okay. So let's go back over here. All right.
So I was thinking, text cases, I think it's pretty practical for the applications we want to do. Like it's an output that is easy to manipulate, especially with the change that we did. When there's several types, now it's an association. On the other hand, when there's several output property, let's say.
Well, let's take a look at what we've got here. So text cases of this, let's say, verb, noun, and then can I say animal?
I don't know if this version has... I think the next version will, right?
So shall I try it? And can I try it in prototype or something?
Is it
that yours?
I think it's not merged yet.
On prototype, there are problems with the neural network. It's not in the neural network packet, but anyway, it's broken on prototype.
Okay. So but you think, if I get rid of the animal here,
I think you have the whole behavior there.
Why is it so unbelievably slow? Okay, but this is the old form and you've changed this.
Yeah. Want to separate. When it's a list, want to separate. So we separate.
Can I see that in 12.0 or can I see it in the head branch build?
No, this will work in Proto and in the 11 also. In the 12, sorry. In the 12 master, yeah.
What do you recommend? Head branch or prototype?
Any.
Okay.
Head branch.
So yeah, we'll be interested to see how you do the two-dimensional thing when you have both multiple how do you call them?
By the way, that we have 6 million builds. That's quite impressive.
I hadn't noticed.
Seriously?
What's that? Yeah, that build number is 6 million.
That's way too much.
I don't know about that. It just means we're testing a lot.
It means like if we do 3 times a year, it's like, I don't know, 1,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah. What?
Well, how many builds are we doing a day?
We're doing a few, I think, but those are that's not builds that's builds since the beginning of the build system. So if we were releasing every build, then we'd be releasing every few hours. Okay, so what you're doing here, why is this so slow? Okay. That's rather unimpressive output.
Yeah, actually, we always use this output, but it's a it's a case that is notoriously bad.
What do you mean?
Put another sentence. I don't know. I don't know
whatever.
where. Anyway.
But are we fixing? Is the new neural net going to fix that?
I don't think for the part of speech.
Yeah, I did not train on part of speech, but I could actually.
I mean, normally they're pretty good at part of speech, but this one.
Yeah, I would have thought so. That's frigging weird.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Maybe they're all. I mean, walks was also. Oh, that's just crazy. Why is it only? Why is it not getting fox as a noun and all that kind of thing?
I don't know.
It's really broken. Well, Jerome, that's your thing.
Yeah, I will check what's happening.
I mean, the accuracy on big test set is pretty high, but
well, in this particular example, it's not working.
And I don't know why I always use this example.
What's that? And one always uses it. Okay, so what's the analog of this? So in image cases, are you saying right now, image cases, if I were to do it for, so in this particular picture,
if you use it for multiple categories, it would be similar as cases. It would be flat. It's like a prime or integer. It will not distinguish between them.
Okay, but I think this case. Okay, so here's what I think we should do. Okay, so this case, I believe, should do the same thing that this one does. Because remember that cases doesn't take the list as cases will simply look for a case. See, I think this is wrong. I think this should be cat arrow, that guy, dog arrow, that guy. Am I making sense?
Makes
okay,
sense.
yeah. The original specification was to have this doing the same thing as alternative. Because we do
right,
support.
but I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong because I think what we want here is for cases itself, right? In cases itself, what we are doing is something like this. We've got, cases itself is looking for any expression, so it certainly doesn't use the thing in a, if I give it a different list, it will be looking for that literal list. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes. But do you think we still want to support alternatives if you say cat alternative?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And we get the list in that case.
Yeah, in that case we would get this. But in the case where there's a list here, I think what we want to do is give an association as output.
Okay.
Now, the interesting question is, in this case, at least if we were to give, I don't know whether we should allow the abuse of notation of saying verb, vertical bar, noun. We certainly should allow that for the entities. I guess we can sort of do this sort of whatever it is.
Alternative, yeah, it works.
What's that?
It's alternatives, right? So
yes.
It works now.
Well, okay, fair enough. I just am not wild about having alternatives with strings like that. But okay, fair enough. Okay, so we've agreed that then if there's a list here, it will turn into an association form. If there's an alternatives, it will stay in the list form.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back over here.
Wait, Stephen, before we drop this, there's one more case here, like one level, extra level of complication, because you have text cases, form and property. So what happens
I was
if
about to discuss that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so then...
Very quickly, are we sure for the alternative case we want to get rid of the keys?
Yes.
Yeah, I think alternative is a single object. You're saying like,
exactly.
I don't care if it's the cat or a dog. I just want any that match.
Exactly.
This pattern.
Okay.
It's the same if you just do noun. It won't give a. I think it's good.
Okay, so in text cases, we have this idea of the property as well. So
which is a little bit similar to cases actually when you have arrow, except we don't
that
really.
was the idea, yeah. Right. And that was our idea. So, except that, Okay, so what can be on the right-hand side there?
String, position, interpretation in case that it's a city or whatever.
Okay, so
and you can do
the default. The default is string in that case, right?
Yeah, default is string.
Well, I have to say I'm sort of partial to doing something similar with image cases, which we're not doing right now, right?
No, because the property thingy was in image contents. But yeah, it's not difficult to implement.
Well, maybe we don't. I mean, I don't know whether we want it there. So, I mean, the thing with image cases, I could imagine like interpretation being useful if you were using alternatives, for example. You could certainly have interpretation mean something. And in fact, there should be a generic category. Yeah, in fact, what you should be able to do here is to say image cases of that picture, comma, animal. Okay, so let's consider this case. Animal arrow interpretation. Right, and then what you should get out is cat and dog, I believe.
Wait, because if you say animal, like we are living on an ontology graph here.
Yeah.
So either we introduce something else which is not a member of the ontology graph, or animal will be interpreted as any class in the animal category. So this will give a list of cats and dogs as images. And then what kind of interpreter do you want to call on them?
It's a bit like applying image identify on the result.
Exactly. And it's the direct analog.
Why not image identify then? Why interpretation?
Because image identify only deals with one object.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you're running it on sub-images, right? So I think the right-hand side would be an arbitrary function, image identify.
Similar to
possibly. I don't think that's quite the right thing, because if you do this, and I say country, great. It's unimpressive. Wow, why didn't that work? This is rather unimpressive. What?
This will be fixed. It was the previous version. It was based on spellings. So you have really to match the
whatever. But okay, so
yeah,
this,
we don't have. It's not a new version yet.
It's what?
Yeah, it's not a new version yet.
Okay.
This is old stuff.
Okay, so that first one there. Well, who knows what that is? But it probably will work in the old version over here. But you get what I'm saying. That version, the previous version, was just giving the analog of the images, right? But this is giving the entities for them. See, this is just the raw string, effectively, which is like the raw image, the cat and the dog. But this is now giving the interpretation of those things, which, do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, but this, okay, then we need not to allow people to use strings as classes if we want to reserve them from interpreter types. Because here the interpreter type is country.
What do you mean by classes? Which classes?
I mean, when you say animal, you are referring to a specific, like here, you are both referring to an interpreter class and a node on the ontology graph. I'm not sure if you want
to be all the children of animal on the ontology graph.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I'm not sure if you want to allow them to be both.
Why not? They should align, correct? I mean, that is what we're saying is image cases. I want to know what are all the animals in my picture. Okay, so one way I want to get that is as a bunch of images. Here are the animals. Go identify them. The other one is give me the interpretation of each of these animals. I kind of think, I don't know. I mean, another question.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I don't know, Jerome, how did you do with interpreter classes? Because every time I try to approach it is very it's a very complex and deep issue, and it's very difficult to get actually what are the what are the list of, for example, okay, countries is easy, but it's not clear to me, and it's constantly changing. What are the elements?
South Europe, for example. I mean, actually, I don't even know if we have that in some form. But what was the example?
South Africa. No, it was a country class, right?
I mean, South Africa is a country, but yeah, country class. I don't know which example.
You mean, I don't know, like G8 countries or something? That will be a country class.
Or North Africa, yes, sorry, I said South, which was a country, but anyway. But I think to answer Julio's question, so we are just calling the interpreter in text cases, and actually it's not ideal because it can fail also. Like you can recognize something as a country, but the interpreter, given the database, it cannot interpret it. So
well, you should flag those cases, and we should fix the linguistics.
Yeah. And definitely.
But it's endless.
You removed the class, the entity class. Didn't you told me actually this morning?
For the labeling task, I removed them, but they are in the model.
I'm sorry, back to this question. If the neural net says it's a country, the country of Moldavia or something, which isn't a real country, right? But it sort of thinks it's close enough to a country. But then our interpreter runs and it fails. Moldova would work, but Moldavia wouldn't.
Yeah, that's the failure I was talking about. Like, you are not guaranteed that you're going to interpret. Like, it can be an imaginary country, and given the semantic, you guess that it's a country. But
yeah, it will give a failure object, so it won't crash or
that's pretty weird.
Edge.
Frankly, that's pretty weird. I mean, in the case where you say arrow interpretation, I think it should prune it. In other words, if you say, so the question is, look, we've got two kinds of inconsistency. One inconsistency would be you might have a different number of things if you just said, give me the raw strings versus give me the interpretations. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. But then what if you ask for two properties? You ask for position and interpretation. Then you drop the...
Well, I think you'd have to prune completely if the interpretation failed. I mean, you'd have to say, and arguably, there could be a method option to text cases that basically says, should you check the interpretations? See what I'm saying? So the method option would determine whether it's similar to, when we do equation solving, there's an option which says, do you want to, substitute in the solutions to check they work type thing.
Yeah, the pruning is a bit problematic because sometimes you also ask for the string on the position and the interpretation, and
yeah, he's saying we should prune.
I'm saying you should prune all of them, all three of them, if the interpretation. Look, what I'm suggesting is that there's a method option for text cases which says, I don't know what, require interpretation or something.
Mm.
And if that's on, that's not probably the right way to set up the method option, but something like that. If that's on, then it will always check, even if you're only asking for string, it will check that there is an interpretation.
Yeah.
And will prune it otherwise. So let's go back to the image position case or image cases case. Okay. So if we're going to do this thing with the right-hand side of image cases, which I kind of support, then we can do all of those things. We can do, we might as well do all the things. So then what's the role of image contents in that situation?
It may be obsolete. I'm not...
I'm not sure it's obsolete. I mean, first for humans, for just, let's say we don't do any computation.
Data set is nice.
Exactly. Yeah. Just to be able to see everything. You can also figure out what to ask for in image cases,
Yeah.
You say, what's in it? And, it can recognize this and this. I'm going to create a program with image cases that looks for this type.
Right. Well, then image cases better support all of these. And by the way, I think this should reorder, and I think the image should come first here.
I agree.
And maybe the same, sorry.
And then no data
image,
set.
Then concept, then bounding box.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, now it's just alphabetical. There is no particular order.
I see.
And I think based on what we discussed for facial features and implemented, we won't return a data set by default, just a list of associations, and then / data set to display.
Why do we want to do that?
It was your suggestion when we implemented the facial features.
But I don't think we have to do it exactly the same. This is a contents function, and I think this, like the text search functions and things, I think it should return a data set.
I like that too, actually. And I think it could be the same with text. Like text content is a nice data set, gives everything. I mean, many stuff. It's a bit of a mess. And text cases is a more tailored function for the real application.
Actually, you don't need to do everything. I mean, we support, for example, in facial features, we decided that automatic and all are different set of properties. So, for example, automatic could be image, concept, and bounding box. You could drop dimension, position, probability. Mm-hmm. And then you or just maybe just image, concept, and probability if you prefer, and then you can always query for specific properties or say all, and you get the full data.
Actually, I think the ones that are interesting are image, context, position, and probability. That seems like the right ones to me.
So image, concept, position, probability. Okay,
I think so. Okay.
Just to bring back some discussions from the return type of facial features, extracting parts of a data set keeps returning a data set, and that's often annoying for further processing. But if you think the image contents is just going to be this display function, then I agree the data set is better.
Yes, I think facial features, the point with facial features is that the most common thing to want to do is, well, let's see. I mean, is to get what is about to happen here. By the way, when are we getting these boxes all standardized? Sushma, is that your project or whose project is that?
It is mine. We are waiting on Tally, and he promised me he will write the description this week before he goes to summer school. So
he's not coming to the summer school. He got exiled again.
What? Seriously? Okay.
I think Tally said his visa thing was denied somehow. How that kind of happened, I have no clue. But anyway, so he's not.
Okay.
Or did he solve that problem somehow?
So that's my fault. The loading initialized data, it's my fault.
Is it the classifier one?
It's a built-in classifier that shows that. Okay. I think we need a global way to control, I don't know, with a global variable or something to deactivate, because it's a function that uses other function that uses other function, and sometimes there's not an easy way to.
You're saying that the initialization data, the fact that it says repository, is a little weird.
Well, arguably, the lower level one is the second one, so we should keep just the first one. But it's true in practice, the second one is more informative.
Yeah, but I think the only thing that's wrong with it is the fact that it says downloading content from the repository.
No, but it is true, because basically facial features, we decided to for it to call classify in order not to have any duplication. And classify is downloading a neural network.
Okay, fine, but it should just say downloading content is completely obscure. It should say downloading network or something from,
But we cannot hook into that. I think this is a generic. Well,
then it should be parameterizable.
Yeah.
Then we should get the resource system folk to parameterize that, to allow parameterization of that. And how many of these am I having to load? This is the thing that you've managed to find a way to compress this network greatly, right?
I mean, Sebastian has proposed this new model that as soon as we have time, we would like to retrain. So instead of having 500 megabytes network, it will be maybe 50 or 20.
Yeah, well, that's really worthwhile, because this right now is completely unwieldy and will certainly not work with an instant API. It's hardly instant here, right? Because it's going to need to be, unless it's pre-provisioned. This is really boring. Okay, I thought I was just going to get an instant answer here. By the way, why I must have used this on this machine before.
I think networks were updated recently.
Okay.
Or redeployed at least. I'm not really following that closely, but.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I think this is perfectly useful. And I think this is more, I agree with you that this is more useful because the typical thing you're going to want to do is to somehow, is to say, hash age ampersand slash, the thing that is really kind of scary about these things is that I think these neural net things are better at figuring out ages than I am, which is bad.
No, don't worry. The age network is really bad.
It's really bad? Well, that doesn't mean, but I may be even worse.
Okay.
I think as one gets older, it becomes more and more difficult to distinguish ages that are far from one's own.
I mean, the emotion are not so great either. I mean, the second one is obviously happy as well.
Oh, I don't know. I think that person is skeptical. I think it's a fake smile, but let's not go there.
Maybe.
Okay. So, all right. So I think what we're agreeing is that the cases family will have right-hand sides that are at least strings. Whether we allow the slightly bizarre thing of having a function on the right-hand side, which is what you're doing in, which function was that you had the foreground thing in, Shadi?
No, that was highlight image, but there's no arrow syntax.
Yeah. We thought about that as well with Jerome for text cases. And we saw some use case, like let's say you want to have, the string and then an arrow and the position. So it wouldn't be a function that apply only on the string. It will be a function that apply on an association where you have the string, the position. So for example, here you could put, if you open two parentheses, string, arrow, position. If you see what I mean, with a hash.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, but
that was an idea anyway.
That the right-hand side could be a function that will be applied to essentially the virtual association that was generated, right? This is the conceptual association that's generated.
Yeah, that's one. Okay, there's one level difference here, and is that the image, age, gender is basically on the same side as interpretation, position, and string.
Yes.
So, but you don't have double association. Yeah, you don't have a nested association at the end. You just have an association for like.
Actually, yes. So in text cases, it's a bit weirder because it doesn't generate this association at level 2.
Okay, hold on. What do you mean it doesn't generate at level 2? I mean, it's going to do the same thing. If I say country, comma, date or something, it's going to give an association of.
Yes,
but this is level 1.
But if you put interpretation, comma, string, it won't give an association there.
It'll give a list there.
A list, yeah.
Right. So one of the questions would be, if I want something at that level that is more of a structure. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're saying that those things there, if I gave, okay, I get it. So let's imagine, let me do this right here. You're saying if what I did there instead was something like hash interpretation, arrow, hash string, ampersand, right? That you would apply that function to the pop-up association, so to speak. That's like this, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, and so the keys would be at the level, like instead of image, you would have interpretation. Instead of age, you would have string.
And identity would return this.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially for single property cases, like you only ask for image or bounding box, then we can just have single functions specified on the right-hand side.
Well, or in particular, you can just have this syntax here, where that syntax is equivalent to, hash interpretation, comma, hash string, that whole thing ampersand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's not stupid. Seems quite sensible, actually.
The advantage of this would be that it's a perfect base to put some quick post-processing
Yeah, word
So you-
translation or some, just
Like,
whatever.
yeah, you imagine that you want this to string split or to do the character of the string. If you want to do that afterwards, you have to map at the second column. Well, in this case, you just specify it directly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't object to this, but okay. So what have we? So the let's see. What are we doing here? So we've got to have. The question is, what possible forms are there for text cases? And we have that list, and what possible forms are there for image cases or for audio cases, for that matter. And for text cases, obviously, what in text cases is string, in image cases is image. And it would similarly be audio, presumably, for the audio case, right?
Yep.
Now, in the audio case, are you imagining that, you're saying that you're dealing with classes like dog bark and things as what you are asking for audio cases? Because I would more think that what you'd want there, and actually, I guess this is the question for image cases as well. What I really want is to use sort of pop-up training in image cases to say, look for sub-images that are like this, right? That was the function that we talked about last time. That was the general subcasing function.
Yeah.
Remember?
The discussion around the pattern object.
Right, but that was the alternative to the pattern object, because what we've understood is that image identify, right, is the whole object identification, right? But what we also think we want is a partial object. Is this a version whether it's going to work or not? Oh, for goodness sake.
This network is smaller.
Oh, great. Well, okay, fair enough. Okay, so then the question is, okay, what are we doing? Image cases asks for a specific type of thing in the image, whereas image contents is going to tell me this is eyeglasses, face, etc., 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 presumably.
Yep.
Okay. And in the case of text contents, it's going to give a great big long analysis of the piece of text, probably. Right? Because text contents, I don't know if you've even thought about how to do that, but text contents would be naturally saying, well, what are all the possible, that's a perfectly reasonable thing. I mean, it's similar to what the Wolfram Alpha parser does, is asking what are all the possible entities that are contained in here, all the things, what's everything that is identifiable in the text, if you understand what I'm saying.
I guess we'll take the idea that Julio was talking about, like the all automatic.
I think so. Yeah. So, I mean, probably it's entity identification you want to do, and a few other things you probably don't want to do nouns and verbs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but what was the subcasing function that we were talking about before? What was the function for looking that is the analog of this, but it looks for sub-pieces here?
Part cases?
What's that?
Did we talk about something like part cases?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about, right? Did we come up with a better name than that?
No, it was at the end.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we came up with names we were not happy with.
Okay, but I mean, but essentially what we're saying here is part cases. See, image cases is automatically a part cases, so to speak. But the thing it isn't doing, okay, so the question is, what's the answer to the question of how do you feed it a collection of images and say, I want to find places in the image that match a thing that looks like this. Right? That was the image pattern type thing, right? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we think we're doing with that?
I mean,
Etienne wasn't happy about it.
Well, let's discuss. I mean, this is saying this is kind of a pop-up classifier, basically.
I mean, I'm not unhappy about it. I mean, in terms of implementation, there will be some tricky things because when you create the image pattern, you might want to do some pre-processing. Not to do, you have to do it later several times. On the other hand, you need to know the task that will, you need to know why this image pattern will be used for in order to know what type of pre-processing you need to do. So if it's always used in image cases, then it's not much of a problem.
Okay, here's my suggestion. My suggestion is that ImagePattern, if it can do pre-processing, okay, could we not have a cached extra element like we do in things like rule? Okay, here's a crazy idea, right? You do it in image cases. The ImagePattern adds to itself a hidden cached lump of stuff that is the pre-processing it did for image cases. Use it somewhere else, says, well, that pre-processing isn't useful to me, I need to do it again. It adds another piece of pre-processing from whatever it was used for there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is possible. You have to keep both the original content and all the pre-processing, though.
Sure.
I mean, this will inflate.
That's right. Well, yes, but I wouldn't store it, I wouldn't serialize that. I would just have that be a maybe. I mean, maybe you do want to do that. Maybe you want ImagePattern to actually return. I'm not sure. Not sure.
No, I think, this should definitely be, this would be in a summary box, I think, when evaluated. And, or something like that. So the content will not be in the notebook, most definitely. I think the choice is if we want to just have it in memory, so then it's up to you to save it or not. Or it has to be something like a local object. I'm not very familiar with those, actually.
That's a big mess to do it that way. I don't think you want to do that. I mean, it depends how big it is. It's like a classifier function.
More. It's like maybe, I don't know, you want to create a pattern object of, I don't know, your son. So you take 100 pictures and you have all those 100 pictures plus all the classifiers that you define, all the feature extractors that you define. I'm not sure, if you want to, Etienne, if you want to create multiple features, you need to keep the data somehow.
Yeah, what you're saying is similar.
Hold on. So you're claiming that even with our feature extractors and transfer learning and so on, that the thing to recognize a particular face is a fair amount of data. Is that what you're claiming?
No, is that if you want to use it, what Etienne was saying is that if you know that you're going to use that object to recognize faces, you can extract a specific set of features. But if you then want to use it in another function, then it's not guaranteed that you, right now we cannot invert the feature extraction process. So we are stuck with face features that maybe are not good to do another.
I understand. So yeah. What you said, but there's a generic set of features that we are typically using in image cases. I mean, image cases might have a feature extractor that it uses, perhaps. I don't even know. Does it have that as an option?
No, not really. Right now, no. This is not implemented. We have the image feature extractor, and that is the kind of a standard feature extractor. The thing with the faces was, for example, that if you extract features with a facial feature extractor, you get better recognition. But at that point, everything is face.
I understand. But so in general, for ImagePattern, it would seem to me, clearly you might in principle have a facial pattern, but I think that gets a little weird. Right? That gets too complicated. But what I would do is have a front, a triage thing that says, is it a face? Are these all faces? Are they just generic images?
But no, very importantly, it's are they all faces in the pattern and in the image to be cased, so to speak. Because if you have a bunch of face in the pattern and you extract the feature with a face feature extractor, but then in the image you have a bunch of trees and whatever, that will be all extracted with the image with a face feature extractor, and this might give very bad results.
I see. I
Like
see. So
a tree might look like a
koala hiding in the tree. You'll also get the koala because it has a face or something.
Maybe, or a tree looks like a face in the face feature space.
Yeah.
Like another face. You know what I mean? You see what I mean? So
no, I understand. But what I'm saying is, if the steps are there's triage that determines what type of an image it is. Okay, here's my suggestion. Okay, if ImagePattern needs a certain amount of automation here. The first thing it's got to do is to triage and say, okay, what type of an image is this? Is it a face or is it a general image? Let's say, right? Assuming those are the two cases that we're going to deal with. Right, it's a face. Okay, then in the main casing, in the main cases thing, it's going to have those two steps. That is, it's going to say, I'm only going to look for faces, and then I'm going to apply the features that I've got from the face stuff from ImagePattern.
Yeah, that would work.
I think that's, I mean, I think we need to think of ImagePattern as kind of a super function that is going to
it's going to tell other functions how to behave, basically.
I mean, we also have the version where we don't evaluate ImagePattern, so we don't pre-compute stuff, and to be fine, huh?
To do what?
So the wrapper function around it is going to determine how to extract features.
Well, yes, that's fine. I mean, look, the ImagePattern will look just like an ImagePattern here, but it might happen to have some stuff inside it as well that it can use for, for convenience if it finds that it's useful. That is, if the image case is on the outside finds that the ImagePattern has, pre-cached information, then then it just does its thing. Okay, let's talk about. I notice we have some questions on our live stream here, which we'll answer for. Yes, it uses neural nets to download to classify images. Don't CNNs reduce the size of neural nets? No. This is using. That's just for fun. Actually, I'm curious about this. Let me look at the actual network. Where do we have the net model? Do we have the facial recognition network in net model?
I'm not sure what is the facial recognition network. You want one that gets a property of the face?
Yeah. What is that called? Do we have one?
Many. Etienne, you have
different. I mean, there's a age one. So exactly, age estimation.
But we didn't. Obviously, this wasn't the one.
No, it's the other one. It's the second one.
Oh well. Can I interrupt this?
Yep, just abort.
This one here.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the thing that there is now a more efficient version of. By the way, for the person asking on the live stream, there are, as you can see, there are many convolutions here. Is the new one fewer layers?
Right now, there's no new network. Sebastian last week was proposing that we use this new model, but it's just an architecture.
Seriously big, crunchy creature. Look at that.
Yeah, it's
a 25,000 element vector. Wow.
That's going to be super slow.
That's probably where most of the size of the network is, actually.
In what?
In that linear layer after that big number.
Okay. Well, anyway, all right. But okay, so back to audio for a second. So we're imagining that there will be an audio pattern like this, is that right? Where you would be able to give, I mean, the thing that's tricky about this is similar to the problem of, let's say you give samples of different people's voices here, or of a particular person's voice there. That would be the audio pattern that you could then use where it would, I mean, okay. The issue is, what is it recognizing, right? It's a particular person's voice, or it's the person when they are happy versus not happy, or whatever else. It needs to, as you're saying, Etienne, it needs to know the context to know what features it's supposed to pick out. Although,
exactly.
I think this hierarchy approach is not completely silly. That is, it says, it knows it has to drill down to a certain level. Yeah, I mean, Carlo, do you want to comment on this? Go ahead.
Okay.
Just to finish on that, when we'll have learned distribution working well on images, then we won't have this problem anymore. Anyway, because it will be reversible feature extractor, it won't be fooled by, it's not just a projection, it kind of keeps the noise. And I mean, anyway, that might not even happen in the next year or two. So,
what? Which?
Conceptually, if you have a feature extractor that preserves information,
yep,
then you wouldn't be fooled if I give a tree to a feature extractor that's specific for face. It won't be fooled because the noise will get crazy, basically.
That was this weird reversible approach.
Yes, exactly. Which I have high hope that we can do nice thing with it, but
Really? So this
no article. I mean, in some remote future.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
So as for audio, as Tian and Julia were saying, actually refer for images. In the case where all of this feature extraction happens in this case in audio cases rather than in audio pattern, then it makes sense. But it is a bit more problematic to do feature extraction in audio pattern because what kind of space you will extract your features in will depend on what problem you are investigating. So sentiment, age, speaker identity, etc.
Yeah, right.
It is very much analogous to what we were discussing with image.
By the way, somebody on the live stream is asking about capsule networks, and I think we just added a bunch of capsule networks to the neural net repository, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, there is one.
Where is it?
At least.
Second column, second entry, capsule.
Oh yeah, CapsNet. There we go. Cool. Actually, I'm curious what this thing is like. Okay, this is irrelevant though. Let's well, it's small at least.
It's
the layers.
What's that?
It's 8 layers, but I guess each layer may be, well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's more like right now it's basically doing what Lynette is doing, just in a more complicated way. It's conceptually very interesting, but
we can click on the so we see what's inside. Yeah, you see there's layers inside layers. So
yeah, that's a big net.
And there's a net graph again. If you look at the second one,
a paper using capsule for audio has just been published. That will be once we get to it.
The way these neural nets look at this stage in history is just so much like, low-level circuit diagrams and so on. I mean, there's got to be a high-level way of representing this stuff. Anyway, just okay. So we need to wrap up here. Really late on a bunch of things, but let's so I think we have a path forward. Do you think we answered the questions that we started out with here? I think we did.
So.
So the only we haven't addressed text plot, and I'm not sure we have. Do we have the relevant people here for that?
No,
I don't see Brett here, so.
Okay.
I would wrap up what we have instead of opening another topic.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah, but just a very quick comment on the plotting function. Carlo and I have been talking about some sort of a dynamic audio plot, and I think that would be relevant for text plot as well, so that you just stream and plot events or detections or whatever else. Some annotations.
That's kind of cool. It's like, forget teleprompters. We can just have a streaming text plot. I mean, that's what you're suggesting, that it's like a ticker tape of text.
Mm-hmm.
Is that actually useful? I mean, normally, notice that with closed captioning.
Sorry, go ahead.
Notice that with closed captioning, people do not do that. In other words, it could be the case that when you did closed captioning, that there would be a caption that runs across the bottom of the screen, but people don't do that. They do boom, 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 one sentence. At least I've never, maybe I'm just don't watch the right things, but right, it's not a UX that people like to have, where you have a video and you have a sort of ticker tape going underneath, as opposed to just one caption, then the next caption, then the next caption. Did that make sense?
And that might be one mode, or the preferred mode of the dynamic text and dynamic audio plot. But the main idea is that the idea and text is one-dimensional, both, and then could be very long.
Yeah.
Already text cases that is beyond a couple of sentences becomes a very complicated structure.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, having it dynamically stream by just seems crazy.
Or maybe with a slider go through and
I don't see it. I mean, I think people want to see text in 2 dimensions, which is fine. That's how, it's been formatted since people were, writing on scrolls and things. I mean, right, text is one-dimensional, but it's chopped into lines and put on a page, which in the case of audio, one does not normally do, although one could.
That's true.
One certainly sees that in, I don't know what, I've seen that in like in neuron recordings and things like that. I think I've seen a thing where we have multiple lines and it's chopped. I mean, I think the main problem with audio and is, what do you show? You show a waveform or something, but that's not something that most people, I mean, again, seismograph traces are often chopped like that, right? Because it's mostly boring, but then suddenly something happens. Carlo, do you want to comment on this? I mean, what is the use case? The use case.
So I think what the reasoning behind a dynamic plot for audio was rather the main event would not be displaying the content of audio, because I mean, you either have a waveform or a spectrogram, and those are not overly informative.
Yep.
For the average user. The idea was to use this as a tool to display annotations that the user either computed or manually inserted.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand. You're listening to the audio go by, and every so often a word flashes up on the screen?
If that is the annotation that you have, but you could annotate, sentences. You can annotate transient events, like a drum hit or something like that.
Right.
But wait a minute, the annotation of speakers is much more something like what we're doing with text structure, where you have a narrative. Well, no, actually, the right way to do that is what people have done for, sort of screenplays for forever and ever, play scripts for plays and things forever and ever, right? It's or legal transcripts, depositions, whatever they are. It's like this person : blah 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 blah. I mean, that's presumably the kind of output we want.
Yeah, but the idea was that we would like to be able to display a generic annotation. These are just some specific examples. Another one could be the transcription of the fundamental frequency of the signal. So this is very much a different beast. So we're trying to find a way of just displaying an annotated or play an annotated audio
and show the annotations.
Yeah, I don't think we have clear ideas on how this should look like yet. The main point is we have annotations on an audio signal. How does the user interact with them?
Sorry, I'm distracted here. Say that again, if you could.
So we have annotations on an audio object that could be either automatically computed or the user has inputted at some point. How does the user interact and visualize these annotations?
I don't know. How does it work in typical audio editing programs?
It is very clunky. One example that is very much used for speech-related stuff is Praat, and it displays usually a spectrogram, and then a lot of these annotations are either text or just values as a function of time. And it displays statically a series of rows, and each row has an annotation. It is a bit clunky.
I think this is a separate discussion.
Yes.
But okay, so let's let's have a separate discussion about essentially text plot and audio plot. Well, we already have an audio plot, but
We do.
whatever this is going to be. Let's see, somebody was asking on the live stream, why aren't image cases and image bounding box are in 11.3 but are not documented? Yep, well, you're kind of seeing why they're not documented, which is we haven't completely figured them out. You'll find with image cases in 11.3 that it does work, but it doesn't know very many classes of objects.
Yeah, this is the second reason why it's not documented yet.
Right.
Design and power of the network.
Right. Okay, anything else we absolutely have to do right now? Nope. Okay, great.
Good.
See you all soon.
Okay,
Wait a minute, Sushma, do you want these notebooks? Did I do anything important in these notebooks?
I have taken notes, but you can send it to me if you want.
But is there a place for me to save them?
Yeah, there is a neural net framework folder under SW notes.
Okay, all right, I'll save them there.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.